Hi everyone, it's Kasia, and I have a tag for you. So, recently, if you watched my previous video about my favorites of month of November, I was sharing that I got back to the fairy tales, Polish fairy tales, and I want to research a little bit more what's hidden in the fairy tales themselves. And my tag is about your fairy tale. So I would love you to share with me what is your fairy tale. My fairy tale, when I, move back into my childhood and start to think what fairy tales I really liked, I loved the Little Mermaid. And I remember crying as a child and thinking, like, what? No happy ending in the fairy tale. And I want you to remember that there is this Disney sweet-washed version of Little Mermaid. That's not what you want to read and not what you want to think about. If you would like to read the proper version of Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid, just go online, Google it. You can find free versions, of the fairy tale online. So for me, this fairy tale, Little Mermaid, was really moving, and I remember that just stuck with me. This fairy tale really stuck with me. So when you will think about fairy tales for you, just think of, the first one or two first ones or three first ones just really come to you as something unforgettable. You don't have to love them. Like as a child, I don't know if I loved the fairy tale, but it was definitely one that moved me, stuck with me, and even now, I kind of forgot about it for many years, and now I returned to it, I reread it, and I thought, what the fuck? So the Little Mermaid, my fairy tale, what does it teach me, when I look at it now as an adult? And that's what I would love this tag to be about, for you to share with us, if possible, because it might be very personal, but if possible, to share with us your favorite fairy tale, or a fairy tale that really, like it feels like it's your fairy tale. And tell us why, like what, when you look at this fairy tale as an adult now, like what strikes you, what sticks out, And when you look at fairy tales, it's really important to, when you read them, to pay attention to things that are not quite clear or not quite, like for example in the story of Rapunzel, why is she sleeping in ashes? And there is so many amazing things in fairy tales that you can like just pay attention to. Even in your fairy tale, I think you might find a lot of new elements, which I did when I reread The Little Mermaid. So first of all, with The Little Mermaid, she gives up all she knows, like her whole world, because she thinks that the human world is better. That's where she wants to live. That's where her heart tells her that she will find happiness, joy, that's what she wants to explore. So in some way I gave up in my life and everything I knew a few times, because I traveled, and for example, first time I gave up my known world, went to live in Germany. Then I gave up my country to live in another country, get another citizenship. So I feel this kind of sense of the theme running through my life, leaving all she knows behind. And that's what the Little Mermaid does. She willingly also, um, sacrifices a lot, but she's really heart focused. And I always used to laugh that, I changed continents for love, for guys. I fell in love, so I went to Australia. I fell in love, so I came back to Poland. It's just this kind of really heart focus orientation. But there is also a sacrifice. I had to sacrifice a lot to give up a lot of my amazing friends whom I made, let's say, in Australia, or give up a lot of things that I loved about certain things in Poland. When I moved away, I had to give up my family, which was really hard. And all of these things, come with sacrifice. So Little Mermaid also goes to a witch, and the witch is like really fucking bad. Like she is awful. She just wants to like She doesn't really want to help her, but she just wants to, get as much as she can from Little Mermaid. So she tells her that she can get the legs to look like human and, can kind of, so that she can go and live in the human world. But she has to give up her voice, and Little Mermaid has the most beautiful voice. So she gives up something. And when you think about, she willingly gives up her voice. She cannot tell anyone how she feels. She cannot tell anyone how who she is really. There's this part of her which is totally veiled, and that's like the sacred feminine also that gave up the voice. And in my life, I had to give up my voice quite often. So as a child, I'm not going to share why, but I had to give up my voice. And later on, when I moved, for example, to England to live in the UK, I couldn't speak English really well. So I felt like I had no voice, like the level of my conversations were basically, 3-year-old child's conversation. Hi, I'm Kasia, I'm from Poland, and I'm looking for I'm looking for work. So that giving up voice really rings still quite deeply within me. So and then she goes, the Little Mermaid, into this imagined like amazing world that's also very Sagittarian, that's kind of always thinking that something is so much better than what you have, and like you want to just explore and see other worlds and other dimensions. So she gives up this voice, and the witch fulfills her promise and gives her the legs. But every time she takes a step, it's painful. That's like pain and suffering, but she bears it with a smiley face because she loves the prince, right? For love, she will do anything. That often happens to many of us as well, that for love, we kind of gave up and sacrificed a lot of our own desires, our own dreams, our world. And we suffered walking the love path, So, and then what struck me when I reread the fairy tale recently was the ending, which I totally, as a child, didn't kind of register. I didn't remember that ending. As a child, I remember that I was crying because she died and she changed into the foam, and Prince didn't love her, and it was horrible. And how can a fairy tale, not end in a happy ending, which in Christian Andersen's fairy tales, enough to think of like the girl with matches and stuff, and you just go, he didn't end his fairy tales very often with happy ending. But as a child, I was expecting a happy ending. So to me, when I reread this Little Mermaid, it was also a karmic tale, a tale of death and rebirth, of eternal life, of the search for the absolute. Because at the end, she has a choice to kill the prince and return to her old life, which she rejects. And then she hears, when she kind of throws herself into the water thinking she is going to die. So she has this moment of complete surrender to her fate, to what she agreed to do. If the prince doesn't love her enough to forget his parents, and so he doesn't, because he marries somebody else. But he did love her. So when she kind of surrenders and throws herself into the water and thinks she's going to change into the foam, she hears this amazing, like, angelic voices. And she looks up and there's this sparkling light. So it's like, what happens to death, maybe, after death, or like she has this moment of dying, as if he was describing this kind of sense of surrender to the going away, to the beauty, to the fate, to what's happening, to the moment. And she hears these voices and she asks, who are you, and they say, we are like daughters of the air. I'm translating from Polish, so I'm not sure how that sounds in English, but daughters of air. And she says that, like, who are they? And they kind of take her up, because the prince actually did love her. So she's not changing into the foam, or like sea foam. She's actually being taken up and offered a chance for 300 years if she does good deeds and helps people and whatever, fulfills, like, like, just if people are happy with what they do, the daughters of the air, they with every good deed they gain like a one day of that 300 years so that they can get the soul, the eternal life, that's what humans have, and the little, the mermaids didn't. So in the end, she's helping others to get her soul, her eternal life. So there's so many deep kind of issues and subjects and themes in this fairy tale. So I would love you to share what your fairy tale is and how do you see it as an adult now, and what did it make you feel when you were a child. And I also pulled 3 cards from the Fairy Tale Tarot. You can pull cards from any tarot. I just thought I never used this deck, so I'm going to use it. And I said, like, what is this fairy tale teaching me? So I just pulled 3 cards. So the first one, I haven't even read about the fairy tales yet. I just thought, like, the mentor. So hello. It is definitely one of the teaching themes, the voice loss, the maybe finding your own kind of in your heart what's true for you and your own way, your own path. She didn't succumb to killing the prince. She didn't do it to save herself. She's just like really quite lives in integrity with her heart, which I loved. So there's a mentoring tale for me, definitely. And then I had another Christian Andersen's, or is it the Grimm's? No, Andersen's fairy tale, The Snow Queen. So it's Kai and the Snow Queen. And again, to me, this fairy tale also speaks about, the frozen heart and how to unfreeze your heart. And that's really very hard focus. And it's another 5, which is quite amazing. So it's 5 the mentor and 5 of wands. And then I got this emperor, which is the wise old man. And I think this fairy tale with the voice loss and stuff, it speaks also to my father archetype and sacred masculine archetype. And I find it quite fascinating. I actually don't know this fairy tale, The Wise Old Man, so I'm going to read it. But it also speaks of this connection to nature and to that kind of sense of who you are, So that's what I wanted to share. So the hashtag is going to be myfairytale, and tag me please and let me know what is your fairy tale, and I would love to hear about your own experiences and your kind of psychological revelations that you maybe receive or already have received and can share with us about your life from those fairy tales. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will speak to you soon. Bye!